Hi everyone, this is Allan McKay and welcome to video 6. So I am excited. This has been a long journey and we're starting to pick up the pace. As we get deeper into this video, we're going to be doing a lot of really cool stuff. So now every single day moving forward, you're going to be getting a lesson. I'm working on these really hard and I'm going to aim to deliver every single day. So as we go through video 6, this one's going to be a little bit lighter, and that's intentional because you've been working really hard and I want this to be something that isn't too overwhelming. So this is where we're going to finish up doing the particle effects. We're going to have the entire face disintegrating, blowing away. And because we've done all the hard work in the previous lesson, it's actually pretty straightforward to do it now. And we can choreograph the whole thing as it begins to peel away and then control exactly when the timing of the entire face breaks apart. So that being said, we're going to get into a lot, and next lesson we'll continue with the lighting, the shading, the rendering. I'm going to show you a lot of different tricks that we can do to integrate into the live action plate. Now obviously by now you've heard about the FXTD mentorship is opening up for registration. We're only opening for this 1 week, so we've got a little bit of time left as we get into this. So if this is something that you are interested in, if you want to spend a year going through a lot of intense training with all of us as FXTDs as we go on this journey, as well as being mentored personally by me, then this is a chance to sign up and take action and be a part of the journey with us. I'm excited for this because this is a chance for me to get more hands-on with everyone. I've done a lot of training in the past and it's always been frustrating because I'm not able to get the interaction that I feel like we all need to be able to really get to the next level. So if you want to spend a year with me doing live calls, doing a lot of training, over 700 hours of training, we're going to be doing a lot, then click the button next to this video and go to the sign up page. You can register there. We still got a little bit of time before it closes down. So if you want to join us in the FXTD transformation, then I look forward to spending the next year hands-on with you, getting to know you, mentoring you, and pushing you as we go through the training. Okay, so I'm excited to jump into this video and I'll see you at the very end. Okay, so in this lesson, we're going to make the face blow away completely, and we've already done a lot of the hard work already. So what I want to do is I want to just focus on choreographing something that's going to look really cool. All right. Obviously, one of the downsides is that feedback at this point is going away. So this was the important thing, is that we build up over time. We're not digging in and getting to the fracturing right away. We intelligently choreographed everything that we're doing, so that way it would become very easy now to be able to just have it all activate and have it all function without needing to go back and forth. So part of this though is going to be, we just want to get a very floaty kind of feel to it. You might have noticed with the version I had, I kept it more based on like Avengers Endgame opposed to Avengers Infinity War. So in Infinity War, it was this very light, ashy stuff. Whereas in Endgame, it was actually a very different decimation feel. It was a lot more heavier. It was a lot more instant. It wasn't as delicate and graceful. It was actually just more linear. So the effect that I had was quite the same. It just kind of blew away. It didn't, flutter and do all these things. So that's kind of what we're going to be doing here. We've got this set up. We already had the wind set up. So part of this is that I'm just going to turn off the red stuff for a moment. We've got the green, and that's what activates everything. So what I want to do is, as this activates, I'm also then going to use the green to begin to activate everything blowing away as well. So going back to this, we have that particle group 3, and then we had in here particle group 1, was it? Yeah, 1. And we had this property test which sent it to the next event. What I want to do, I'm going to go back to our first frame. I'm going to drop this in. I'm going to get that wind that we just like slapped together. I'm going to move this out and link this up. Okay, so turn it on as well. Now, all we've done is we set this up where we have this property test where it's activating based on group 1. Sorry, other way around. I'm thinking of export groups, how they're inverted. So group 2 and 3. So with this one here, I just want it to be group 2. So I'm just going to go to this one, turn 3 off. So the green particles are going to activate it, they're going to move to another group, and at this point, they can blow away. So let's just change these to geometry. I'm just going to throw some crap in here. Okay, so I'm just going to throw a spin. Let's make it spin towards direction, get some divergence, relative to velocity, 22, I'm just throwing crap in. Okay, so all I'm doing is, we had the wind from last one that we just temporarily threw in, and I just want these to spin now, and that's it. So I just threw in some settings. The main thing was just travel by direction. Or travel direction, sorry. But with this, all we're doing is, as the green particles move over it, it might have fractured it, but the green particles are more kind of like centered inside of that fracture. So I assume that these are going to be a lot more delicate. So you can start to see that this is aggressively growing, but then the green particles are what's activating. So there's still plenty of stuff that isn't. And at this point, though, we also have the Voronoi, so obviously they're going to be even finer. But then they move into this group, and this one is, blowing it all away. So let's just zoom in a little bit and take a look at what we got. And as we can see, it's activating, it's blowing away. Now this stuff isn't. That looks wrong. So let's just go back to our Voronoi fracture for a second. Okay, cool. So one of the things that it has in here is max fractures per frame. And this is kind of to protect us from like putting in some crazy complex stuff like value and having it try to break it forever. So it's kind of capping it at 50 per frame. So because of that, this is all breaking, but then it gets up here and it's like, I'm not going to do it. So let's go back and let's just give this like an infinite value. In other words, let's go crazy. And let's also, I think the cuts are fine. So let's just leave that alone. I'm going to go back through again. And I'm just going to step through a few frames. But the whole point is that now it's not going to cap out. So I think we're going to get much more elegant cuts through it all. Okay, so as soon as we do that, we can see it's all breaking and it's doing its thing. Now, part of this is that even though it's fracturing, it's not activating until later. So I think that that's important as part of this process, so that way it's a bit more gradual, rather than like just instantly breaking and blowing off in big chunks. This is going to break, but continue to deform with the face, and then as the green particles begin to move around, it then activates more. So and again, I'm winging this at this point. I'm just making it up as I go, but I'm going to play around a little bit. With the search radius here, I'm going to make it like 1.1. Let's try to see what we get from this. So the main thing that I'm trying to get is just purely making it activate later. So in other words, there's more time of it breaking before it blows away. Okay, so just as an example, bringing this in more, and I just wanted to like make a point of this, the entire face at this point has fractured. You can see the different colors, but it's not activating yet. So I think we'll probably bring the search radius back up a little bit, but I just want to make that clear how just because we fracture it to smaller pieces doesn't mean that we want to activate it right away. We want it to be gradual. And again, now we can see that's all beginning to blow away, so that's all cool. So overall, looking pretty cool. I think the best thing to do, and I've kind of hinted at this before, is that you don't want to shoot blind. It's better to, like for me, I can usually get a shot close to finished in minus client feedback, of course, but within the first couple of versions, and it's typically because I need to see it once to at least understand what I need to do. And for me at this point, it's one of those situations I need to see it once because I need to see the transition, the way it's going to grow, all that stuff. I'm pretty confident we'll bring the search radius back up. We might play around a little bit. I'm more interested to see what the particle motion is going to do. Part of this is I'm going to turn the green display off. so that way we don't see the green. We're just going to focus entirely on this effect. And I think overall this is looking pretty neat. So I'm just going to run a preview of this and we can check it out. So this is great. Getting to see what we're doing, we can make creative changes now. So just by reviewing this, we can look at it and say, okay, well, first of all, how's the spread? Overall, the spread I think is pretty good. It could happen faster. So that would be our first creative note, is we want to make the spread faster. The second one would be that the frequency is kind of off. I feel like there's a bit of high frequency in there, and then the other frequency is too big. So it's very wavy. So we need to adjust that. In terms of the speed, again, I'm considering the fact that this stuff launches out so quick is probably the wavy turbulence. I feel like the overall speed could probably happen quicker. So those three things alone, I think, would be the first things that we would address. And we just got to decide like how we want to do that. But like I said, so the frequencies overall need to be adjusted. We can increase the wind strength a little bit to blow quicker. I'm just going to go back to the first frame. So doing the wind is probably the easiest one of all. To increase the wind strength, we'll just put this to like 0.3. We don't have any slow on here, so I might actually add a slow operator. We'll keep it pretty basic, but I'll take that into consideration. So right now I increase the strength to 0.3. Let's just do 0.33, throw it in there. This turbulence here, it's pretty nuts. I think that, you know, it's okay, but it's not quite what we're after. The big turbulence is kind of nuts, so I'm gonna guess 0.15. I'm also gonna lower the turbulence amount, and then with this guy, I might do lower frequency, higher scale, lower strength. Okay, again, I'm guessing this stuff, but the main thing I want to point out is that the more I get familiar with how turbulence works, how effects works, all of these things, the more I can visualize, the more I can start to make creative decisions. So here's the method between the, you know, in the madness, I should say. So overall, I felt like the turbulence was arcing really big. So it's obviously this one because it was a much lower value, which meant bigger kind of curls. So and by the way, I've got like a YouTube tutorial on turbulence that you can check out. But by bringing this up a little bit, I think that's going to curl more. It'll be less wavy. But I also lowered the strength because I knew it was quite violent. And I'm hoping that's all I need to do with that. Whereas with this one, it was already kind of high, but like I felt like there was a bit of a jerky motion to it. So I lowered the strength and I lowered the frequency. And by lowering the frequency, it makes it arc more. It's kind of weird. Like once you understand how it works, you can visualize it, but trying to describe it's a bit of a different thing. But because of that, I believe I brought up the scale a little bit to compensate for that as well. The last thing I'll do is I'm going to make this turb. Okay, I think that's just like a safer bet. I prefer these. I just feel like they're a bit more predictable. So again, I'm just totally guessing with that. The multiplier is interesting, so we vary a lot of this. I'm going to lower that, so that way it affects it a little bit, but it's not massive. I think we'll roll with that and see how it looks, and we'll go from there. I didn't really look at the spin or anything like that. Let me bring this up one more time. I mean, the spin you're not really going to see too much. I'm going to bring it up a little bit. Okay. Now, the other thing was the growth. And again, like I'm just throwing those values in there. I'll tell you what, I'll run a preview because rather than just me dial in a lot of changes and be like, okay, cool, now it's all working, let's see the changes happen. So all I did is I messed with the, I added some slow, increased the spin a little bit. And then the main thing is that I increased the strength of the wind a little bit. It was 0.2 before, now it's 0.33. This was 0.5, I think. Maybe? I can't remember anymore. But you know, basically I just stabilized this a little bit more, so we're getting less violent curls. And then with this one, I felt was a bit more higher frequency, so lowered the frequency, brought it back up a little bit. So in general, and I lowered the randomness here, but in general, you know, just stabilizing the turbulence a little bit and increasing the wind. All right. So I'll do one more preview of this. We'll check it out, and then from there, we can look at the actual growth system and the activation. I want to speed it up a little bit because it's still happening at the end of the shot, whereas video 1, the very first shot, we were already working on the rest of the body falling apart. So the head needs to be dead by the end of the lesson. Okay, so definitely looking better. It feels a little bit linear now, so maybe we can increase the turbulence a little bit more. But overall, it's pretty cool. Now, I'm just thinking about this. So the activation happens very quickly, but of the red, but not the green. That's how I feel about this. So we'll go back and we'll have a look at all that in a moment. But that's just something, like an observation I'm making, is that he turns blue very quickly. So I guess it is the search here. So it's more, the green particles aren't activating as quick as the rest of the activation. So that's fine, but maybe what we could do, just noticing that it's not to do with the red and the green, it's more to do with the fact that they come in here, but then this isn't activating it fast enough. So that makes me think that we could increase the search radius, but then I like how it's currently breaking up. So we could actually instead introduce additional activators, something else to kind of randomly activate it. So that's just something that we can think about a little bit, and we could consider adding in. So we'll worry about that in a moment. One thing, as I mentioned, was the turbulence looked good. It just felt like it needed to be a little more wavy, and I think that if anything, it'd be the lower frequency could be a good candidate. So I'm going to try increasing that to 0.35, and you know, we'll run another test. But for the time being, I'm going to turn this off, and I want to go back, look at these again. I just want to look at what we got going on, because maybe we can utilize something that we've already built as an activator. So I'm just jumping ahead here a little bit. I'm going to turn the property test off and turn this back on. The reason is so that way at least I can see something to do with the head. And I'm just going to look at this and say, okay, well, the red particles are spreading, the green particles are spreading. And bear with me, I apologize. What I'm going to do, I'm going to jump back to frame 1. I'm going to turn this on, turn the activation off, turn the Voronoi off. So the reason I'm doing this is because I just want to see the behavior of the activation. That's all I care about right now. I'm not worried about the motion, because I think that we've already got some pretty good motion happening. What I'm concerned about is, like, how do we activate this? So I'm jumping ahead to a later frame. Hopefully I can scrub back a little bit from here, hopefully. And okay, so we got it activating, and it happens pretty quick. So I'm going to actually cache this whole thing really quick, just so we can discuss this. But the whole idea would be that it all turns blue, but it doesn't move to the next event where it fractures and blows away, or at least it blows away. So what I'd like to do next is, yeah, just kind of have a look at what the particles are doing, you know, because maybe what we can do is we can go back to one of the original systems, like the one that we had, just kind of activate everything, and we could introduce that with a small search pattern. So as it's gradually growing from the cheek, the chin, the forehead, it also just starts randomly blowing away everywhere else. So occasionally it's good to just jump to the last frame, so that way it all caches in memory. Because now I can just scroll through and say, okay, like by here, a good majority of the head's all activated. Whereas, like, I want everything to be, you know, completely active by the end. So either way, looking at this, we got it all spreading. So just jumping around a little bit, I just turned this all back on. What I think makes the most sense I'm just going to turn... I'm just going to disable this. Okay, so it starts around 210, and what I think is around 220... Sorry, bear with me. This is one thing I just want to kind of get a good feel for. Now, this is typically why I'll always do a play blast with the frame numbers at the top, because I can see that then. But I think around here, so I'd say like 225, I'm going to start to animate the search radius to be bigger. And just by doing that, I think it'll, aggressively start to deteriorate. So just go into 225. Just going to turn auto key on, set this low, then back up again. All I'm doing, I'm turning on auto key, and I just like, while it's all red, it means that I can set keys. I just put in like whatever value, then I put it back. The whole point of doing that is simply so that way it'll set a keyframe. And now I just go to the curve editor, and this is my lazy way of doing this, but now in the curve editor, which is this guy here, click that, it'll bring up this window. Rather than having to look through all this, I can go up to the filters, right click, say animated tracks, and then expand this. So it just means that we have something, really? Okay, so it's not showing up, that's awesome. Okay, plan B, apologize for that. Here's a news flash, I hate Max's curve editor, give me Maya's, yeah, any package is going to work better. I'm not a huge fan for a few reasons, but whole point is that I just right clicked and I chose to go to that frame, and then I can, because it says one frame, it's going to set another one at 0. Okay, so just to recap on what I just did, all I did is I set a keyframe just with auto key turned on. We can turn that off now. I just changed the value on that frame so it set a keyframe. And when it does that, it automatically sets a frame at frame 0 as well. Okay, it'll always do that. So what I'll do, I can right click and go into the value, and it's going to give me the key information. So this is fine, but we can see this is key 2. So if I click on the left, it's going to go to key 1, which is set at 0. So instead, I want to set that to be 260. So that's going to change the key to be at frame 260. And then we can set this to be like 2. Okay? So all we did, you can see that now it's showing up here. So all we did is we're just saying it where it starts out at 1.1 here, and then it's going to expand up to 2 during this time. So it's going to aggressively start to grow. So the search radius will become more aggressive. So hopefully I explained that right, but like that's all we're going to do with this. So make sure auto key is turned off. Just click off. Make sure it's off. Let's go back in here. And I'm going to run another preview. So we haven't done anything at all. Like we haven't changed anything this entire time. All I have done is set this now to animate to expand. And I think that should, having this all turned back on at frame 180, that should be pretty useful. I'm going to right click and enable this again. So it'll just start to aggressively start to deteriorate. So I'm going to run another preview. We can take a look and just see how that feels. Set the resolution a bit higher, and I'm going to set frame numbers. Okay, so this looks perfect. I'm going to do a bit more messing around with it, but I just want to point one thing out too, that this lesson I went a bit back and forth with it. Usually I've got in the habit where I plan everything out and I go step by step, and it's more just to be very respectful of your time. I personally would prefer just to wing it every time and go through it, but I want to be respectful of your time and make sure that it's the minimal amount of time it takes to get the lesson done. However, this time around I'm hoping, and this is going to be again for half of you, but I'm hoping that seeing my creative process will be interesting and valuable to you. So in other words, seeing me say like, oh, okay, like I got to tweak this, and you know what, how do we approach this? Because honestly, with the fact that we are at that point where we're not getting that instant feedback. We can't just scrub and tweak. It's change a value, wait about 5 or 6 minutes, look at the result every single time. It means that this is the sort of thing that cripples your creativity. And so it means I'm trying to think ahead and think of the right decisions to make ahead of time. And this is why, like, we could have done this from the get-go instead of creating the growth system and doing all this stuff. And this is what I see a lot of junior artists do. They get really complicated, really heavy, way too quick. And because of that, they really struggle with their shots because they're not looking at how to keep everything as fluent as possible, so that way they can just go back and forth very quickly. In other words, like trying to get the principles all locked down before you get into the heavy stuff. So again, hopefully looking at this, just getting an idea of my creative process is valuable. I'm just looking at this. What I think we'll do, one final more tweak. I like it overall. I feel like we can appreciate the search a little bit longer before it begins to completely fall apart. So I'm moving this up to like 223, I don't know, like whatever, 222, what's to say? Oh, sorry, 232. I'm just delaying it a little bit longer. And that way it'll just decay for longer over time because we don't need it to all fall apart so quick. And hopefully that delay doesn't affect it too much. Looking at the preview, and again, we have those green dots on there, which is a bit distracting. But the only thing that is catching my eye is just this steppiness. It's a little bit stuttery with this stuff. And that's because we're using wind. Like if you're using like speed, you can randomize it a lot more. And we can randomize this stuff. It's just right now it's kind of steppy. So one of the last things I'm going to do, I'm going to go in here and turn on simulate substeps, and that way it's going to calculate multiple times per frame. And while we're doing that, I'm going to go into TyFlow, and we can go time step. I'm going to say half frames. So what this means is that it's going to calculate twice per frame. Okay, so this is in the modify panel. I just selected my TyFlow node, and I'm just going up here and saying simulate twice per frame. And this way we'll get a bit more accuracy. Finally, the last thing I'm going to do here is I'm just going to randomize. I'm going to throw like 16 in there instead of 10. I'm just going to randomize this a little bit more. I feel like I should go higher, but I'm hoping the substeps is the main thing that fixes this. But I think that is it. I want to try and keep this lesson shorter than usual, right? So I'm going to turn display off there. So I'm going to run preview to see how this looks. I want to keep this one a little bit, sorry, it's my squeaky chair, a little bit shorter than usual. And the reason for this is that I want to give you guys a bit of a break. We've been going through a lot. And I'm going to run a preview real quick. But what we'll be doing in the upcoming videos is next lesson, we're going to get into doing all the lighting and shading. So in other words, I want to build up all of Thanos shaders, do all the lighting and everything. Because I think, for me, I think that what's really going to sell the shot is getting all the lighting and everything to really work. And part of that is going to use that growth system to actually make like a decaying texture that infects the face, kind of, even though we're not going for like a biological effect, but we still could have this begin to dry up, let's say, before it starts to crack. And also just with the lighting, there's a lot of ways we can match it to the footage. And I'll give you guys the footage in the next lesson as well. So that's going to be a really critical part, but I think the same lesson, once we get that done, is going to be about doing the Phoenix simulation as well, so it all turns to smoke and blows away as well. And I want to do that after, because that way we can actually use the lighting to really tweak the shaders and get it all right. So the next lesson is going to be a big one. We want to get the lighting, the shading, the integration with the footage, everything working. And then from there, it's going to be about doing the rendering and compositing. Okay, so that will be video 7. And sorry, when I'm saying video 8, and from there, you know, we'll composite the shot, we'll really take it through the final. So all of the hard work will start to pay off. And then the last 2 lessons, I'm going to change gears a little bit. I'm going to be doing something really, really cool. So all within the same spectrum, but I want to use this as a chance to, you know, you guys have given me a lot of feedback. I've been taking a lot of that into consideration. So I want to look at what's next. And I'm going to be creating like a mini 2-lesson course where we do something really awesome that I'm excited about, that I haven't seen anyone else really kind of pull off yet. Okay, so this is looking good. I like how this has turned out. The whole effect is looking great. So obviously we don't want the whole neck to disappear, we just want to have the face. There is one little change I made. So I wanted to show this just to kind of, again, give you an idea of how it's going. So I did a preview with what we had, and this is what I got. Sorry, this is what I got. So we can see that it's starting a little bit too late, and that was the main problem. But overall, it looked really good, just it happened too late in the game. So 2 things I did. I just went back to my TyFlow node, and I pulled this back to 222. So in other words, I had it actually activate sooner. And I went into my time test on converting the red to the green, and I went from 6 to 3. So in other words, I made the green particle to activate 3 frames earlier, and I made this expand a little bit earlier. So again, all I've done is I've looked at that and said, it looks great, I want it to happen earlier. So I went back in and just shifted some of the activators to happen a little bit earlier. And the final result that we get looks great. I'm really happy with this. The last thing that I want to do, and we don't need to preview it, so I'm just going to turn this off for now, but we have the birth shape. And what I want to do is I want to import the teeth and the gums in here and the tongue, so that way they blow away as well. Now the way that we can do this, I'm just going to copy and paste the head frags, rename them to inner mouth. Okay, and go to birth. I'm just going to hit remove on all of these and go into character mouth, just double click, add selected, and we just dropped everything in there. So at least now these are going to get activated too. And we just link that in there. Okay. And with this stuff, I guess it's just traveling over the head. So I'm just turn the display on for a second and just want to look at the mouth. So hopefully this will activate everything. So I don't think we need to do anything. However, as a precaution, we can do a time test and link this up as well and set the time test to be an absolute frame and say greater than, and we go to our preview, and we could just say, like, hopefully it activates already, but worst case scenario, we have it happen at like 2:45, and that way all of the teeth are forced to blow away. So we could randomize it a little bit, but if I just said 2:45 and then like, I don't know, 9 frames, it just means that now the inner mouth will activate based on all of our activation stuff. But in addition to that, worst case scenario, it will just do its thing. It'll just turn away. In terms of object binding, this is the only tricky thing: is what do we bind it to? So I just turned off the activators for a second, and I mean, this seems to work fine. I think using the object bind like that is good, and then yeah, we have it activated and move to the next event at that time. So I think we're good. Like I said, I won't run a preview of this, but we've just gotten the head and the mouth all to be loaded up, working as a particle system, and they should fracture and do their thing. So from here, if you want to run a preview, check it out, go ahead. Next lesson, we're going to move into lighting, shading, and that's when we'll bake everything out. It's like once we've locked down all that stuff, and then we'll introduce Phoenix to do all the dust that's overlaid on top. And we'll look at doing all of our final renders. Because right now, I think that we're in a pretty good spot with this stuff, where we can see that we have the teeth, the gums, the tongue, all of that is working for this perfectly. And the final result that we've got is this. So I think this is working out great. And yeah, I'm excited to see what we do. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you got a lot from it. Obviously, this has been a long journey, and I'm proud of you for sticking with it this entire time. Now, like I said, I wanted to keep this a little bit lighter, just so that way we can kind of have a breather before we get back into it. Next lesson, we're going to be doing a lot of shading, photoreal lighting. We're also going to be doing the fluids. We're going to be doing a lot. So it's going to be really awesome. And then from there, we'll be taking it into the rendering and compositing and finishing it all up. And from there, I've got a few extra surprises I can't wait to share with you. So I'll be back next video. Like I said, if you want to join the training, you've still got a couple of days, so take it easy, but it is first come, first serve. So if it does fill up before the date, then we'll obviously be closing it down early. But like I said, take your time, think about it. If it is something you want to do, then I look forward to mentoring you over the next year. Either way, I'll see you next video as we get further into this visual effects shot. Okay, talk to you soon.